Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Josh, and we're going to go over another one of these Overwatch League matches. Boston Uprising versus the Seoul Dynasty. Almost spoonerism there. Yeah, we're going to look at these two teams. We're going to look at Boston in particular, because what a story this team has had, right? Like, I'm going to address the elephant in the room first and foremost. Like, they lost a player. They lost a player for a really stupid reason, right? They lost a player for a daft reason, Dreamcasper, removed from the team. And you expected, like, that was their star DPS player. This was their strongest player. And he's gone. And it's like, what do? Oh my god, they're in so much trouble. But what ends up happening, what is actually happening, what we're seeing out of Boston, is they seem better. They seem stronger than ever before. And now they're doing the impossible. They're slaying giants left, right, and center. They're taking people down, and they're decimating them. And it's like, well, why is this happening? Why is this going on? Now then, we're on Volskaya. I think this is actually the first ProOverAnalyzed we've done on Volskaya Industries, and we're doing the Volskaya game for a very particular reason. One of the things in Overwatch League that we're seeing is sort of we're getting more and more data on these teams. We're seeing teams play these maps more and more and more, is we're building up map records. Now, the map records are really, really useful for us because we can sort of go, oh, well, Boston Uprising? Well, guess what? They're undefeated on Volskaya, okay? They have not been taken out on Volskaya. Seoul Dynasty, also undefeated on Volskaya. Can you see why that's exciting? Can you see why that's really interesting, that both of these teams are meant to be really, really good at this map? So when you get a match between them both, then that's fascinating, right? Now then, as the gates open, we're going to do the usual. We're going to take a quick breather and take a look at the team comps. Alright then, first things first, first point Volskaya Industries, nothing too untoward on both of these teams. Widowmaker, of course, being pivotal on both sides, Fleder versus Mistakes. Fleder, generally regarded as the better Widowmaker in this duel, so he's the one to he's the final boss to beat here for Mistakes. Mistakes is going to have to pull out some fancy tactics and maybe try and get the better of him there with some positioning or with some support from his team, for example. But the real big duel here, the real big battle in my mind at this point is Striker versus Munchkin. Striker's been causing a lot of waves recently. He's sort of been like the sleeper god of Tracer in the Overwatch League, and now people are going, wait a minute, this guy's actually beating like Sabiobi, Munchkin, Birdring when he plays Prophet. He's beating all these top tier Tracers. He's decimating them, right? He's just come out and he's just killing people. He's slaying nerds left, right, and center, and that's what you want to see. So Striker is definitely going to be someone we're going to be keeping an eye on throughout all of this. Okay guys, let's roll the footage and see how this first assault goes. Now, you're going to just see like a lot of jockeying for position. A lot of Volskaya first comes down to like Zenyatas and Widowmakers. Long sight lines, tanks just sort of poking each other. The positioning here is very much typical on both sides. You see the support staying in the large health pack room, the tanks staying more around the point in that sort of little cubbyhole. But here we see a lone Zenyatta just drifting around in the middle of nowhere. Guido takes a bullet to the dome. The res is there for him though, because Toby can stand far enough back, pick him up, no problem. But then a risky jump out of Mistakes. Like, sometimes I'll be like doing some commentary on some Overwatch and I'll talk about like good Widow jumps and bad Widow jumps. In my mind, that was a bad Widow jump. It's a bad Widow jump because you sort of jump out and you're out in the open, you're floating around in the air for a long time. The enemy can see you for most of that jump. The good Widow jumps are the ones where you sort of just poke out of cover at the last possible moment and then you fire your shot straight away. But you can see that Seoul Dynasty, they're trying to sort of keep Mistakes pinned back. They're trying to make sure that Mistakes can't do anything. But while all this attention is on Mistakes, Striker is actually in the backlines causing havoc at the moment. You can see both Tracers building up pulse bombs extremely fast, and that's because Striker and Munchkin have been so active, ranging around looking for threats, looking for angles. And this is the big moment. When Striker has this pulse bomb, this is very, very standard almost now. This is sort of somewhat typical. The Tracer will sneak around, go to where the supports are hiding, and try and eliminate one of them nice and quickly. Now, it doesn't quite work out in his favor, right? He misses the pulse bomb. It's a bit heartbreaking, but they do actually manage to sort of start the engage off regardless and get that full double support ultimate sort of bombshell out of Seoul Dynasty. Seoul need to convert this into kills, right? When you use two support ultimates like that, you've got to convert it into kills, because Boston, they've just managed to endure this, they've just managed to survive this, and then they still have a Transcendence in the back pocket, right? And what a play out of Striker, right? What a play out of Striker. He was dueling against Munchkin and Guido at the same time, and still kills Guido, gets out with his life. Like, phenomenally good play. He's now just going to clean everyone up left, right, and center, taking people down, slaying nerds, like we said. He's had a phenomenal game so far, and it's only been like 2 minutes, and he's just destroyed the enemy team. Like, Munchkin could not stop Striker doing what he wanted. Guido could not slow him down, could not land the orbs on him, and sure, he could help Munchkin, heal Munchkin, but Munchkin couldn't save Guido, and losing that Zenyatta is huge. And now Boston Uprising are in a really good position. Straight away, they start doing some swaps as well. You see Mistakes picking up the McCree. Note swaps to D.Va, but that's just to get a mech back. Don't get too confused by that. He just wants his mech back nice and quickly. But Mistakes swaps to McCree. You want that medium sort of engagement range. The Widowmaker has a harder time because there's just enough pathways to get onto the point where Widow is a little bit less effective here. She can't quite see the targets coming quite as well, and the engagement is normally determined more by that mid-range. So it's very standard to see McCree sort of come out here. Deadeye is actually pretty strong on this as well. You see where Mistakes are standing now, that's usually where the McCree will end up standing. He'll try and Deadeye, the team will cover him, and you can normally get a kill or two out of that as well. But because they have this Transcendence, they can convert this into an instantaneous engage. They capitalize, taking down Soul's tanks who've over-engaged a little bit. Fleta isn't really contributing much to this. Munchkin can't beat Striker. He's just forced to run away, constantly just trying to get healed and supported, but gets taken down at the end of the day, and now they're just sticking it up on the point. And like, this is phenomenal out of Boston Uprising, right? This is really just solid play. They're playing around the ultimate advantage they know they had. They're playing around the edge that they knew they had. They baited Soul in. Soul got a little bit too aggressive and got rather punished for it. Doesn't quite get the second third, however. Mistakes did swap to Sombra as well. Part of why he did that was to swap to a hero with a faster rollout, so if the fight on the point went longer, then Mistakes on that Sombra will be able to contribute a little bit faster than McCree, who has one of the slowest rollouts in Overwatch. When we say rollout, we mean like the time it takes you to get from spawn to the fight. So that's what a rollout is, right? Lucio has a really fast one. Sombra has a really quick one as well. Doomfist also has a fast rollout, which is why he comes out in those desperation moments, because he's back on the McCree. Once again, you can see Fleta also changing up now. He's sort of realized that, okay, the fights are more medium to close range. Widowmaker not going to be quite as useful here. So he wants the Dragon Blade to help clean up fights, and he wants to be able to help his team sort of do aggressive dives here. Soul take a little bit of initiative here. They know that the enemy team doesn't have, well, they might have Valkyrie, but Valkyrie's not going to really stop a dive super well. So they can go play aggressively. They can use the dive here, isolate one or two people. And one of the things with McCree is if you are playing an aggressive dive, if you do get like 2-3 people onto him, he will die very quickly. Like, you have to be very, very careful. No, excuse me. You have to be very, very careful if you are playing that McCree, because if you do get dove by multiple people, that's where problems start arising. Nice position out of Munchkin here. He's just waiting on that back line. Going to be looking for an angle just to get a cheeky pulse bomb in. Throws the pulse bomb out, doesn't manage to find it. It's one of those sort of hotly contested issues on like, how do you use these pulse bombs? Do you try and stick tanks? Do you try and stick supports? Sticking supports is higher risk but higher reward. Sticking tanks, you normally convert it into a tank kill. Of course, with the changes on the horizon, that could be changing. But very early kill onto D.Va, in a position where D.Va can't be res. This is clearly go time for Boston Uprising. They have the ultimates to do so. Vlad's going to just try and wait out this Transcendence, can now use the Transcendence from Guido to sort of cover his approach, try and get in there with his own ultimate there. But beautiful play out of Gamsu. Like, Gamsu, again, widely regarded as one of these super tanks in the Overwatch League, just knocks him away, just bounces that Dragon Blade out. That Dragon Blade should have been devastating, right? Like, it's a Transcendence Dragon Blade. You can't really stop it. It's so difficult to deal with. And it just gets bounced out by a Primal Rage. Like, Primal Rage is one of the lower value ultimates in Overwatch. It's so hard to use it well. And Gamsu just, like, deftly almost plays snooker with Fleta and just gets him out of the map. It's phenomenally skillful. It's really, really nicely done. And, like, this is why Boston is an exciting team at the moment. This is why Boston, who were widely regarded as one of the weakest teams in, like, the start of the Overwatch League. Like, at the start of the Overwatch League, everyone was like, oh, Seoul are going to be first. Boston Uprising, probably going to be one of the bottom teams. Like Shanghai, Florida, Boston. Boston probably rated below Florida, to be honest. And Boston have proven everybody wrong. Everybody wrong. They just demonstrate consistent high skill play. And it feels like, you know, the mission statement that they had at the start, the statement that they often made at the start was, we wanted players that are trainable. We wanted players that we could teach and train and sort of develop. And it's paying off for them. It's really paying off for them. Now then, ladies and gents, as we rejoin the battle for Volskaya to determine who's the king of this map, well, it's pretty much what we expect, right? You can see the team comps are pretty much laid out. No one's doing any, no one's playing Torbjorn in the spawn, which always breaks my heart a little bit. I like the seed of confusion every now and then, but, these are serious teams playing for serious money, so fine. Curse your lack of fun. Anyway, right, okay, so Widowmaker Tracer, alright, again, get used to it. I know some people are expecting Sombra to actually still have a big impact on Volsky, but with the way the packs changed and with the way she generates ultimate changing, like, Sombra used to be pivotal on the defense here, but because you can't get that EMP every fight, she's actually seen less. She is seen quite often, like, teams have tried to run her on second more, where she can be a little bit more viable, but definitely on first, the Widowmaker Tracer combo seems to be king, or queen, rather, I suppose. We need to be appropriate here, ladies and gents. Okay, right, Fleda. Very, very dangerous player. One of the best Widowmakers in the game. Trying to just get into position at the moment. Again, this first stage is generally all jockeying for position, tanks just sort of butting heads with each other, trying to create some kind of opening, but you can see Fleda just trying to get into a position where he can now see into that large health pack room, see into an area where he can cause pressure and cause problems for those supports, and then try and get a shot into Mistakes. Mistakes, meanwhile, is just trying to keep him pinned back, like popping up in different places, trying to come around different corners, put bullets down range, try and put bullets into Fleda, and stop Fleda from getting his objective of getting a pick. Meanwhile, the Tracers still doing what they can to build up these pulse bombs as fast as possible. But the fight starts a little bit early, actually. Miro gets into a good position here, manages to find an angle, get some damage in on those supports, and straight away Seoul Dynasty capitalized. This was very nicely done for them. It wasn't a play force off the back of an ultimate, it was just a play force off the back of good play. Miro gets into position, gets some damage out, D.Va manages to get in there, and then suddenly they can collapse the divers. The supports start taking a lot of damage, they lose the health pack, or they've used it already, they can't get healing anymore, and they end up dropping. Boston straight away changed their strategy. Mistakes has already swapped to the Genji, there's the replay, so they get the angle, they find Calyx, and then they just manage to just destroy him, basically. Very, very nicely executed little dive there. Okay, Seoul in a good position at the moment, right? They have two support ultimates, they have Munchkin with a Pulse Bomb, they still have Fleda on the Widowmaker, so that's a little bit dicey. In Boston, they didn't use any ults on the defense as well, so they're going to be okay. Instant DMEC goes onto Zephyr, I think it was a... No, was it a Pulse? I think it was a Pulse Bomb. I think I saw Strike a Pulse Bomb, but it wasn't in the kill feed, so I think it might have just self-destructed after getting Pulse Bombed. Because it looked like it get forced out very, very early there, right, from Zephyr. So I think he did use the self-destruct, but after getting Pulse Bomb. Anyway, I'm distracting myself, sorry. It actually gives you a huge advantage, right? If you force the D.Va out of mech very early, it gives you a nice big opening. And now you can see both teams, now we have the sort of support ultimate Jamboree, but Boston Uprising have both of theirs running a little bit later than Seoul Dynasty, so they can try and convert this into a couple of kills. Nice early kill onto Guido is actually a bigger deal. Losing Zenyatta is a bigger deal than losing Winston, but now that Boston Uprising overextended a little bit, hey, they're getting punished for it slightly. Munchkin trying for a cheeky back cap, almost gets 1/3, but Boston Uprising realize they're not going to fall apart just yet. And Mistakes, that early swap onto the Genji, like the benefit of swapping super early onto that Genji is that you start building that Dragon Blade faster. A lot of what Genjis do in Overwatch League during the sort of the downtime, waiting for, you know, a fight to begin, is it's just poking, it's just building that Dragon Blade as quickly as possible. They want to do it before the enemy Zenyatta builds up their Transcendence. That's sort of the main objective of what that Genji is trying to achieve, and Mistakes managed to do that in very, very, very solid time. Like, really, really just beautifully done, gets the Dragon Blade, pretty much saves his team with that fight. You could also see that the Widowmaker had very diminishing returns at the end of the fight there. Seoul's Widowmaker play, she didn't pop up in the kill feed a huge amount, and that's because of this positioning you're seeing teams occupy. You can see the map in the bottom corner. You can see that they all kind of stay out of this line of sight area. They just sort of stay to the sides. It's very difficult for the Widowmaker to get actual value. The team goes aggro, goes in for an aggressive dive. Pretty much standard defense now on Volskaya is you basically go for a counter dive. You wait for the enemy team to sort of get half in position, half out of position, wait for an opportunity, maybe force them to use a cooldown or two, and then get some results. Toby and Calyx both popping Valkyrie just to keep this fight going. Gamsu going to be causing some chaos as well. Mistakes, crucially, almost has that Dragon Blade again. Guido does not have Transcendence, so if Mistakes can get that Dragon Blade up and running, it could be huge, but Guido gets himself a couple of right clicks. Again, Boston Uprising seem to overstay their welcome in that no man's land. They just seem to go a little bit too aggro, a little bit too ham going into that back line, but now it's up to Boston Uprising to stall, right? Boston Uprising just want to slow it down. Transcendence is there to help them do that. If they can get Mistakes back and then force Guido to use his ultimate, they have a win condition. Instead, Mistakes just draws the Dragon Blade, does force out the Transcendence pretty much instantaneously. Mistakes knows he's not going to get any kills off the back of this. He should just be focusing on staying alive. There's no health pack there. Oh no, there was a health pack there, so he is going to survive on 26 hit points. Jesus. Couldn't get any closer. Couldn't get any closer, ladies and gents, but he's managed to survive. He's managed to come back, and now Seoul Dynasty, they're running out of steam, because this is sort of pivotal to understanding 2CP, or understanding Assault as a game mode, right? Payload is a lot more flexible. Payload is a lot more like, you know, it's like water. It flows around, and it's mobile, and it's about sort of constant decision making. Assault is very much about like a single strong team fight, and you're going to see it here in like quite nicely demonstrated that as the team fight breaks down, as it sort of slows down and people slowly start dying, the respawns are such a big deal that now that the respawns come back, now that only one person is needed to contest a point and you don't get any progress on it, let's say if you're 3 people and the enemy has 1 person, you don't get any progress on the point, this is actually a really big deal because it means that one person can just consistently stall the point, consistently buy time for the team, and then as the respawn advantage kicks in more and more and more, it becomes very much about can you clean up, can you kill the enemy team super quickly and then take the point. That's how you get progress on Assault, and these fights just keep breaking down into these slow, sluggish affairs. Seoul Dynasty can't finish up the dinner, they can't get the kills at the end of the day, and it's really, really starting to punish them. Now then, a big part of that is that Striker's just hounding people constantly. The tanks on Boss and Uprising are doing a really good job staying alive. Gamsu just seems like a constant annoyance. It's a beautiful boot back, and then Gamsu manages to just get back. Notice he takes a side route. Flat out goes for a cheeky dead eye, but no, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made, right? Like, beautifully done on mistakes, because as the McCree, you're thinking, oh yes, he's made a mistake, I can see where you are, Genji, ha ha ha, I know exactly where you are, yes, you've poked yourself out, and then just gets annihilated. Like, it's just, oh yeah, no, you've fallen into my trap, sir. Like, beautifully done. Just spots it, like, it's like a 180 no-scope as well, like, how cool is that? That's really, really cool. I think that's really cool. If I remember right, Mistakes is about to go from being really cool, from hero to zero. If this is the moment I'm thinking of, it might not be. It's easy to get confused. Don't blame me. Like, Seoul have a huge bank of ultimates here, right? They're looking really good for this fight. Mistakes, he's going to have to be patient, though. He knows that the enemy does have Transcendence. They're keeping track of the enemy ultimates. Boss and Uprising get a little bit nervous. They want to force this engagement a little bit early. Maybe try and force Guido into using his Transcendence. But Seoul just back away. So a little bit early out of Neko, perhaps, with that trance. Like, has to back away. Mistakes goes in for Guido. Like, I'm going to pressure him. I'm going to pressure the Zenyatta. And then just gets a boot to the head. Yeah, it doesn't work out for him. I love the bomb out of note. I'm not the biggest fan of him launching it at the enemy, but Guido activating that Transcendence to try and like force us into a big fight, I think is an interesting play out of Seoul Dynasty, but they had to convert that into kills quickly. And instead, Striker just seems to start killing everyone. Note throws out the bomb, it creates havoc for Seoul Dynasty, makes it very difficult for them to do anything. And what this means is now that they can buy time, they can stall out again, Mistakes can lead the spawn, and if they needed it, if Striker wasn't such a boss killing everybody, Mistakes could use the Dragon Blade here and actually clean up. Like, the losing Mistakes there is one thing, but then Guido just activates that Transcendence anyway, doesn't convert it into any kills, and the next thing you know, oh wait, now Boss and Uprising will respawn, they have Dragon Blade, we can't win this fight anymore. So, very, very interesting. Fleta is now, of course, on the Genji himself, so they're going to be playing around similar objectives. If Fleta can build this Dragon Blade nice and quickly, he can get something done. Again, Boss and Uprising, this is the thing, the moment I was waiting for as well, was Mistakes just... Again, too deep, too greedy. Like, these are the dwarves of Moria, right? They're digging too deep and too greedy. They're trying to, like, push them all the way into spawn, and I appreciate that, you know, you want to play a little bit of an aggro dive, but Striker can't bail you out of this every time. Like, Striker can't kill everybody every single time, and that feels like how this is going. Like, sure, Seoul are, you know, they're trying to get something done, it's the last push, okay, let's go a little bit aggro, but that could have backfired so badly. Luckily, Striker's a boss, and manages to get out there, gets the damage done. Now, I'm going to show you guys a statistic, because I think the statistic is very, very telling, and I want to get this on screen, because it's difficult to see because we didn't have the camera on Striker that much. We had the camera more on Mistakes, and, you know, it's very difficult to sort of tell what's going on with players when you don't get to see them. But Mistakes versus Munchkin, that matchup was so heavily skewed in favor of Striker. And Striker, I think, is definitely one of these players, like, in Stage 2, or Season 2, rather, like, the bidding war for Striker, it should be huge. It should be absolutely huge. Of course, that's assuming that Tracer is still meta. I'd be a little bit surprised if he isn't, even with the nerf on the horizon. Anyway, guys, I know it's Assault, I know it's 2CP, I know people don't generally like it, but I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but I like watching it quite a lot. Like, Overwatch League watching Assault can be quite fun. Sometimes it's a bit chaotic, but, you know, when it's refined, when it's actually, teams practice it and get used to it, I find it's actually pretty fun to watch. Anyway, guys, hopefully you Boston fans are enjoying the recent upsurge in, you know, you guys' performance. It's been absolutely stellar to watch as a fan of good Overwatch, and hopefully it continues for you guys. Thanks for watching to the end. I have been Josh, as one voice amongst many, and I'll see you guys next time. Toodles.